Hello, hello, Rhoda here. Welcome to my craft room. Today we're going to do a flip through of the first Sherlock Holmes journal. This is the one that has the jewel heist in it. As you can see, I did change the outer closure of my book with these are two tongue depressors I glued together. I put a little bit of, I did a stencil over a piece of paper and grunged it up a little bit. And that's my closure now. I felt like my my magnifying glasses were not going to hold up. And I didn't want them to be pulled in and out like 100 times before somebody actually bought the book. So anyhow, we have these cool little corner metal pieces in gold. This is made out of the faux leather technique where I scrunched up a piece of paper several times and I drug my ink pad over it, the different colors of ink. I did a few different browns and then I sprayed it and then let it set. Then I crumpled it again and did the same thing. And I think the second time I did it with mostly the scorched timber, a darker one. So that popped out a whole lot more. And as you can see, I just wrapped it on a piece of, like a pizza box. That's what that is. And I kind of did it an odd style where it looks like an old notebook or something you would carry on the field when you're out there doing things. It's got 4 signatures. I did put a little bit of netting in behind the hidden signature that is placed inside. So, and then inside I did a little bit of a carryover with the faux leather technique there. Yeah, I think you're fully in in view, and I can scoot you back and forth. So here's what I did with a magnifying glass. I just ended up putting it inside here, and this is our little pocket we made with the faux rust technique. I got a lot of faux in here, don't I? So, and that was just like a little card that I had made, a little playing card that's also is a journal card. And here we go. This is 221B, yeah, Baker Street. That's it. That's where he lives. Him and Dr. Watson both live there. And as you flip through, we have a belly band that I made with some things that were from Chestita. I also had like a gift from Wayne where he sent me some digitals and things for a present. And that's where some of the other beautiful pieces come from. Now here, this is Sherlock Holmes. He first appeared in A Study in Scarlet, 1887. Last appearance, The Adventure of Shoshcombe Old Place. He was created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He is a consulting private detective police consultant. His affiliation with Dr. John Watson. His only family that's ever mentioned is Mycroft Holmes, is his brother. He's British, and he was born about 1854. He's known for his proficiency in observation, deduction, forensic science, and logical reasoning that borders on the fantastic, which he employs when investigating cases for a wide variety of clients, including Scotland Yard. His popularity became widespread with the first series of short stories in the Strand magazine, beginning with A Scandal in Bohemia in 1891. Most are narrated by the character of Holmes' friend and biographer, Dr. John H. Watson, who usually accompanies Holmes during his investigations and often shares quarters with him at the address of 221B Baker Street, London, where many of the stories began. Now, I had a little magnifying glass on the back. And here's our Baker Street. And there's a multitude of different papers in here. I do have a digital that I've used. I actually got 2 digitals. One is by Wonders by Wink on Etsy. Here's, I can't remember what her name is now, Mrs. Hudson or something. I'll have it in here somewhere where I'm reading. I figured the way this is, you're walking in to the front door, you're going into the parlor or the front room, and there she is to greet you with some tea. And then you're going to go into maybe his study area or somewhere he sits and smokes. And Watson and Holmes both smoke tobacco and cigarettes, cigars, and pipes. Uh, Holmes occasionally uses addictive drugs, especially in the absence of stimulating cases. He sometimes uses morphine and sometimes cocaine, the latter of which he injects in a 7% solution. Both drugs were legal in the 19th century England. Now, down in here, I've got warning may be habit forming because of the cocaine and all that. Here is a periodic table of elements. I thought was cute to put in here. This is a big old setup of where they use for their cases or for their own, enjoyment, whatever you want to call it. This says, "My name is Sherlock Holmes. It is my business to know what other people do not know." These were little cards from Chestita, and I thought they were so cute. I had to add them in here. And I like that it pops up right there and says his name. Now, this is the page that has the stair step. And this one is just like you could tuck something in there, but you wouldn't want to do too much tucking. But here's how the stair step pops out. I always loved that. I found this first with a card, and I never could get it to work that the stairs were solid on top and the cut would be on the bottom. It didn't work that way. It wouldn't work. I tried it. All right. And then behind this door, you always have a door under the stairs, right? We have this. In the first tale of Sherlock Holmes, A Study in Scarlet, financial difficulties lead Holmes and Dr. Watson to share rooms together at 221B Baker Street, London. Their residence is maintained by their landlady, Mrs. Hudson. Okay, that's her name. Holmes works as a detective for 23 years, with Watson assisting him for 17 of those years. And this is my impression of you coming in. You go to their parlor where they're sitting, and then they'll go upstairs because their rooms are upstairs. And here is a little digital that I found somewhere that shows the upstairs of his room. And you can see the bearskin rug, and I guess this is the bedroom. This must be where you come up. I tried to study it and figured out it's like a big bay window at the front. You can see his desk back here, and a bunch of books, and another desk here. There's a door, there's a door. It's kind of fascinating to look at it and try to figure out if they followed through with all the different aspects that would be in his room. It's kind of cool. All right, and here we go with Holmes says that he first developed his methods of deduction as an undergraduate. His earliest cases, which he pursued as an amateur, came from his fellow university students. A meeting with a classmate's father led him to adopt detection as a profession. So I've got the big consulting detective here, and he's checking out some footprints and things there. And I've actually got Scotland Yard. It's very pale. I didn't want it to stand out too much, but I assumed that you could think that Scotland Yard was right over here somewhere that he actually consults for. And then here's, I've sort of got their books in order through here. I thought that would be kind of cool to list them. So A Study in Scarlet, Edgar Allan Poe's C. Auguste Dupin is generally acknowledged as the forerunner of the modern detective story in English fiction and served as the prototype for many later characters. Similarly, the stories of Emile Gabriel's Monsieur Lecoq were extremely popular at the time. Doyle has his main characters discuss these literary antecedents near the beginning of A Study in Scarlet, which is soon set after Watson is first introduced to Holmes. Watson attempts to compliment Holmes by comparing him to Dupin, to which Holmes replies that he found Dupin to be a very inferior fellow and Lecoq to be a miserable bungler. Okay. I don't know if he can't take compliments or he doesn't think much of these men. Okay, so this is the start of the audacious burglary. And Professor Moriarty is Holmes's nemesis. And he is mentioned here that he's giving lectures on something. But I'm still trying to figure out. I guess this is one of the detectives from Scotland Yard. This, I believe, is Dr. or Mr. Holmes. And then I'm not sure who this lady is, whether she is the one that got stolen from, or she is that lady that is his love interest. He never really had a love interest. But anyway, here we go. So I have here his consulting detective badge, I suppose you could call it. So we made this one day, and I thought that was really fun. I used some stamps. I used a picture of him from one of those digitals Wayne had sent me. And it's just like his field label. He's out in the field. And I just had to put that on the back. And then we have one of the clues or questions, and then all the answers are at the end. And it's asking about the hat. What kind of cap is Holmes often depicted wearing? All right. In A Study in Scarlet, Holmes claims to be unaware that the Earth revolves around the sun, since such information is irrelevant to his work. After hearing that fact from Watson, he says he will immediately try to forget it. The detective believes that the mind has a finite capacity for information storage, and learning useless things reduces one's ability to learn useful things. You know, I kind of use that myself. It goes in one ear and out the other if I don't think it's going to be necessary for anything. The later stories move away from this notion. In The Valley of Fear, he says all knowledge comes useful to the detective, and in The Adventure of the Lion's Mane, the detective calls himself an omnivorous reader with a strangely retentive memory for trifles. Looking back on the development of the character in 1912, Conan Doyle wrote that in the first one, A Study in Scarlet, Holmes was a mere calculating machine, but I had to make him more of an educated human being as I went on with him. I thought that was kind of interesting. So he starts out with like just a basic idea for Holmes, and then he built him up as he went along. Now, I know for a fact what the answer to this one is. It's a deerstalker cap. So I can tell you that one without looking back there. Here's another cool like street scene. It's like he's out on the street now on the beat, and he's looking for things. I have no idea where this phrase came from, but I saw it quite often. There's several phrases that has to go with his story. And the game is afoot is one of them. So the detective is particularly skilled in the analysis of trace evidence and other physical evidence, including latent prints such as footprints, hoofprints, and shoe and tire impressions, to identify actions at a crime scene, using tobacco ashes and cigarette butts to identify criminals, utilizing handwriting analysis and graphology, comparing typewritten letters to expose a fraud, using gunpowder residue to expose two murderers, and analyzing small pieces of human remains to expose two murders. I thought this was so fascinating because this was about the time that fingerprint analysis was being born. So when he started writing about Sherlock Holmes, that was just then getting worked into the process of detective work and researching who may have done what. Here, A Study in Scarlet is the first book that introduces Detective Sherlock Holmes and his assistant, Dr. John Watson. The story begins when Dr. Watson returns to London from Anglo-Afghan War due to a shoulder injury. Remember that, because that's a later question. However, with no place to live, his friend Stamford, I may have put that wrong, introduces him to Holmes. As Holmes rents a flat on 221B Baker Street and wants to share rent, Dr. Watson starts living together. Soon, Dr. Watson realizes Holmes' profound knowledge in almost all subjects, especially chemistry, and its status as a consulting detective. And This is kind of the beginning. Here, I just like these fingerprints to be here. They're trying to figure out, this is Mrs. Featherstone, Miss Lady Cordelia Featherstone, and her jewel has been stolen. And she had wrote to Dr. Holmes to ask him to assist her in finding out who the culprit was. And this is just a little letter. I haven't written on it or anything. Some of these things I thought I would come back and write on. I just decided not to, as the person who gets it may want to do their own thing and play around with the storyline. I don't know who all would be into Sherlock Holmes in this area where I live, but we're going to find out. And like here, she's on the fainting couch there, and they're interviewing her. I had to have a few of these newspapers in here, so we dyed this edge together, and that was kind of fun. And I think this is another saying, it is a shocking habit. That was in some of the things Chesita sent me. Here I've got a few blood marks with the embossing glaze. That was cool. And there are a few places to write in here. I didn't fill every page. This is sort of like a gentlemanly kind of page where you can see some of the dapper haircuts they may have had, or some of the stuff they put on when they go out in the field. This is just a little journal card, and so is this. This is just like a human head in a looking glass, I guess. It's kind of different. I think I'll put that kind of behind here. And then we have a few more scenes from some digital that Chestita had. Though the stories always refer to Holmes' intellectual detection method as deduction, Holmes primarily relies on abduction, inferring an explanation for observed details. From a drop of water, he writes, a logician could infer the possibility of an Atlantic or a Niagara without having seen or heard of one or the other. That one went right over my head. Some of you smarter people might know what that is all about. I love these little details, though. All the letters and the antique buttons. Okay, mediocrity knows nothing higher than itself, but talent instantly recognizes genius. That's one of the sayings that was with her stuff. Got a journal card there behind this little kind of a tuck pocket, I guess you'd call it. I got two little taggy things here. And then we're going to flip it. And I had these from some of the Tim Holtz stuff. It's steel pins. And I never realized there was steel plants over here. I thought that was cool. But I have a little definition of Britain. I've got detective there and a case of identity. I had first started putting a few of these on pages, and I really didn't have them in order. So that one is a story that comes up later on. Despite Holmes' supposed ignorance of politics in A Scandal in Bohemia, he immediately recognizes the true identity of the disguised Count von Kram. At the end of A Study in Scarlet, Holmes demonstrates a knowledge of Latin. The detective cites Hafiz, Goethe, as well as a letter from Gustave Flaubert to George Sand in the original French. So he was very knowledgeable of different languages, I'm assuming. All right, this little guy that we made was kind of fun. It's a piece of acetate, and I made it to where you could scoot this journal card in and out. But I've also got, on the upper side, I've got this little film strippy thing that Chestita had. So you could move it around kind of like that. And then you could frame them in the one frame down here. I just thought that was kind of different. And those colors go with this page over here where he's walking the streets again. Kind of reminds me of Jack the Ripper. All right. And here's a few things like the Strand magazine was where his stories first started coming out. It's just a little journal card. We have an eye here. He's a private eye, I guess you could call it. And then we leave Baker Street to gather evidence. So it's kind of like they're going out on the field to start trying to find out what happened to the jewel. Holmes' deduction. Holmes observes the dress and attitude of his clients and suspects, noting skin marks such as tattoos, contamination such as ink stains or clay on boots, emotional state, and physical condition in order to deduce their origins and recent history. I'm tongue-tied. The style and state aware of a person's clothes and personal items are also commonly relied on. In the stories, Holmes is seen applying his method to items such as walking sticks, pipes, and hats. For example, in A Scandal in Bohemia, Holmes infers that Watson had got wet lately and had a most clumsy and careless servant girl. When Watson asks how Holmes knows this, the detective answers, "It is simply itself. My eyes tell me that on the inside of your left shoe, just where the firelight strikes it, the leather is scored by 6 almost parallel cuts. Obviously, they had been caused by someone who has very carelessly scraped round the edges of the sole in order to remove crusted mud from it. Hence, you see, my double deduction that you had been out in vile weather, and that you had a particularly malignant boot-slitting specimen of the London slavey." Okay. Now, these can be written on, too. I put them on some, tea-dyed paper. But there's a lot of references to this study in Scarlet. I might have to read that one because there's just so much about it. Here he's kind of like setting and gathering all of his things together that he might need on the case. I've got diary out here and poison in the magnifying glass. Here's I think that's London Bridge, maybe? Maybe. This here, and that's why I put London Bridge over here. Holmes follows Sir Isaac Newton's rule of hypotheses non fingo. For instance, commenting in A Scandal in Bohemia, it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. And then we have another little question here. What is Holmes' opinion about the supernatural? I'll wait on that one and tell you at the end. That's why we got a lot of bones and skulls. And here's a picture that was from, I believe it was from Wren's Digital on Etsy for Sherlock Holmes. That's the, oh, I hear somebody out there. Sounded like it. But she is Wonders by Wink on Etsy. I had to take a minute to think. My mind just went blank. But this has a skull and or skeleton up inside of the wall, and she took this picture off and found him. Ooh, okay. And this is a piece or two from the Craftley Hall items, and I printed out a page and got a few of these pictures and a few other little guys that fit in here nicely. And this is cool. This is one of the digitals, and I thought this round magnifying glass and that round really matched each other. And have I got it? Oh, there's a page in between. And there's the living room again. Maybe he's gone back home to rest. Holmes is a cryptanalyst, telling Watson that I am fairly familiar with all forms of secret writing and am myself the author of a trifling monograph upon the subject in which I analyze 160 separate ciphers. So that's why I have a bunch of letters and stuff here, because of all the different kind of writings and things he analyzes, and that's why the glasses are there and that kind of thing. And it has rare book department. So I thought all that kind of fit together really nicely right here. This is the end of the first signature. Now here's where it's kind of telling you about the jewel. It's the Azure Ephemeron. It's a rare and priceless diamond, has mysteriously disappeared from the possession of Lady Cordelia Featherstone, a prominent socialite. The diamond is said to hold a secret code that, when deciphered, could reveal a hidden family fortune. Ooh. The nocturnal quill beckons. Surrender the keys to hidden lore, and the jewels reunion shall be inscribed in the clandestine archives of time. I'm not really sure what that is. It must be part of the story or something. Over here, I've got all these different things kind of stuffed in this pocket. This pocket also has some letters, and it says, I'm the most incurably lazy devil that ever stood in shoe leather. So he's standing in shoe leather here. Now, I did try to avoid having cars in this because I didn't know that the time period would have cars. I didn't think it would. But this one, I just had to get away with it because of him standing there. Now, this is another piece of Tim Holtz stuff that has diamonds on it. So I thought, oh my gosh, that's perfect. And it's a journal card somebody can write on. Irene Adler is a retired American opera singer and actress who appears in A Study in Bohemia. Although this is her only appearance, she is one of only a handful of people who bests Holmes in a battle of wits, and the only woman. For this reason, Adler is the frequent subject of pastiche writing. The beginning of the story describes the high regard in which Holmes holds her. To Sherlock Holmes, she is always the woman. I have seldom heard him mention her under any other name. In his eyes, she eclipses and dominates the whole of her sex. It was not that he felt any emotion akin to love for Irene Adler, and yet there was but one woman to him, and that woman was the late Irene Adler, of dubious and questionable memory. 5 years before the story's events, Adler had a brief liaison with Crown Prince of Bohemia, Wilhelm von Orstein. As the story opens, the prince is engaged to another. Fearful that the marriage would be called off if his fiancée's family learns of this past impropriety, Ormstein hires Holmes to regain a photograph of Adler and himself. Adler slips away before Holmes can succeed. Her memory is kept alive by the photograph of Adler that Holmes received for his part in the case. Okay. I always thought I thought it was kind of interesting how it kind of builds things in the story. Now here he is at his desk, looking at his clues and things. I have a few guns through here because they do have guns and such that they use to fight with. At times, Holmes relaxes with music, either playing the violin or enjoying the works of composers such as Wagner and Pablo de Sarasate. I have a little bit of something tucked in here, and this has about the opera. And this was a big stamp that I'd gotten at Michael's, and I really liked how that turned out. And this is from Wren's Digital, and I have a few little things from the Dollar Tree stickers there. And here is a few of his stories. This was like The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. You can get a book now that has all of these short stories in it, and this was a lot of them there. And then it's talking about the Irene Adler, and that's who this is right here, and this is Holmes. They have Irene Adler, who has been reinterpreted over the years as Holmes' love interest and as a prominent figure in the mythos. All of these short stories feature detective cases of various magnitudes and serve as a great way to get deeper into the minds of Holmes and Watson after finishing A Study in Scarlet. And I just have some of the names of the actual stories listed here. And here is a place that you could journal if you wanted to. The detective is described or demonstrated as possessing above average physical strength. In The Yellow Face, Holmes' chronicler says few men were capable of greater muscular effort. In The Adventure of the Speckled Man, Dr. Roy Lott demonstrates his strength by bending a fire poker in half. Watson describes Holmes as laughing and saying, if he had remained, I might have shown him that my grip was not much more feeble than his own. As he spoke, he picked up the steel poker and with a sudden effort straightened it out again. That's pretty strong. Now we did these. These are the drawers that has the fingerprints in them. All of them are mine. Don't know which finger I use. Probably my pointer. But I thought that was cute. It's like his little bunch of fingerprints that he holds in his file case over here. And here's just like a little pocket. I like this as a little place to write if you wanted to. And then we have this. Watson describes Holmes as bohemian in his habits. In his personal habits, one of the most untidy men that ever drove a fellow lodger to distraction. He keeps his cigars in the coal scuttle, his tobacco in the toe end of a Persian slipper, and his unanswered correspondence transfixed by a jackknife into the very center of his wooden mantelpiece. He had a horror of destroying documents. Thus, month after month, his papers accumulated until every corner of the room was stacked with bundles of manuscript which were of no account to be burned and which could not be put away save by their owner. And that's where I've got a few pictures here. This was from Craftley Hall, and that was just showing some papers. And then a few empty areas here. There he is studying something. All these, I wish they were all kind of uniform in look, but, you know, it is what it is. I try to get them mostly wearing the same outfits. Now here's some of the evidence. The clue is Lady Featherstone's study was securely locked from the inside. The thief must have had a key or access to a duplicate key to enter the locked room without leaving any visible marks. And it kind of shows some footprints going through there. There's some evidence. There's some money. This is just a little bit of stuff. Life is the journey. And then we have, I don't know exactly what, these look like almost like a bus locker system to me. I don't know, maybe this is down at the police station. Here we are. I love this one where they're walking and they got the brick behind them. That's just a stencil that I use, a real light brick. The Valley of Fear is actually the last full-length novel that was published, but fits somewhere near the middle of the greater chronology. Holmes and Watson are once again called upon to investigate a grisly murder, this time taking them all the way to Vermissa Valley, the Valley of Fear, as it were, in the United States. A portion of the book is told from Pinkerton agent Bertie Edwards' point of view, offering a closer look into the mind and motivations of the antagonist. Tale of intrigue and murder stretching from 221 Baker Street to an ancient moated manor house to the bleak Pennsylvanian Vermissa Valley. I added that part because some things I read said it was out west, but this one says it's Pennsylvania. So I wanted to know where Vermissa Valley was. And they said that this was the only story that went outside of London and everything. This is the only one that came to the United States. Now here's where we use some clear embossing powder over that skeleton again. This is a journal card. That's a library. And I thought that suited him because he was into reading so much. And here's a few little paraphernalia. I had to splatter some blood here and there. Here was a plant because he was sort of into horticulture. The past and the present are within my field of inquiry. That what a man may do in the future is a hard question to answer. Over here it says, Holmes displays a strong aptitude for acting and disguise. In several stories, The Sign of Four, The Adventures of Charles Augustus Milverton, The Man with the Twisted Lip, The Adventure of the Empty House, and A Scandal in Bohemia, to gather evidence undercover, he uses disguises so convincing that Watson fails to recognize him. In others, The Adventure of the Dying Detective and A Scandal in Bohemia, Holmes feigns injury or illness to incriminate the guilty. In the latter story, Watson says the stage lost a fine actor when Holmes became a specialist in crime. I thought that was funny. Here's one of the Craftley Hall pieces. I just had to put this camera in there. And here is another clue, a question for us. What is unique about the adventure of the Lion's Mane in terms of its narrative? Now, I know this one too. Most of them, as you remember, I read at the beginning, most of it, all of the stories are told by Dr. Watson, but this one is actually told by Holmes. So that was the difference in that. However, Holmes does employ deductive reasoning as well. The detective's guiding principle, as he says in the Sign of Four, is when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And then over here, the Sign of the Four introduces Watson's eventual love interest, Mary Morstan. And that's who this is. This is Watson and Mary Morstan, as well as Sherlock's struggles and dependency on drugs. Mary brings the case of her missing father to the duo, who disappeared 10 years prior. Once a year for 6 years, Mary receives a pearl in the mail, with the sixth pearl including an invitation to finally meet this mysterious sender. What follows is another great story of mystery and intrigue with larger consequences. Down here, they're reading The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And then over here, I have a thing, The Investigations of Sherlock Holmes, some kind of book that used to be out. But here's just a journal card that could be written on. And it tucks behind here. Okay. Then we have a nice journaling spot and a gun, fingerprint. Now this is my puzzle pocket, and it was the only place I could get this to be. This was like a cutoff on one side of one of these pages that I put in here, or I used it for something else, the other side. But I cut it to where this little tab stuck up. I had to put a little extra strength behind it, but it could be written on. And I thought that was so cool. Now this puzzle pocket can be used one of two ways. You can go in that way, or you can go in this way. This is just a little on the wide side, though, so you have to use it on this side. Hey, kitty. Kitty come in. He said it was wet and nasty outside, so he had to come in. Right, kitty? All right, he ended up wanting outside, so he's gone. All right, see, there's a little clip like that right there. I thought that was so cool that it was there and it was here. Okay, this is Holmes applies his deductive methods, and you've got some of them here. Here are the suspects. We have Lord Archibald Grimsby. He's a wealthy aristocrat with a significant land holdings and investments in various industries. He's a long-standing rival with the Featherstone family over an old land dispute, desires the diamond to decipher the hidden family fortune, gaining leverage over the Featherstones. This Professor Eleonora Ravenscroft, renowned archaeologist and historian specializing in deciphering ancient codes, intrigued by the historical significance of the diamond, believes the gem holds the key to unlocking a long-lost civilization's secrets, enhancing her academic reputation. Lady Seraphina Harcourt, socialite and close friend of Lady Cordelia Featherstone, financial troubles and a desire to secure her family's status. Unaware of the Featherstone family's hidden fortune, she believes that possessing the diamond will grant her access to the wealth. Okay. Because of the small scale of much of his evidence, the detective often uses a magnifying glass at the scene and an optical microscope at his Baker Street lodgings. He uses analytical chemistry for blood residue analysis and toxicology to detect poisons. Holmes' home chemistry laboratory is mentioned in the Naval Treaty. Ballistics feature in The Adventure of the Empty House, when spent bullets are recovered to be matched with a suspected murder weapon, a practice which became regular police procedure only some 15 years after the story was published, which is just amazing. I'm not a psychopath. I'm a high-functioning sociopath. Do your research. Okay, another question. Why did Sherlock Holmes ask Watson to whisper Norbury in The Adventure of the Yellow Face? Okay, here's a little tiny Is it a pocket? It's a little tiny journal card. It was just something she had, and I just kind of, it was a pocket, but I made it a double-faced journal card. Has a library on it, and I thought that fit perfect with him holding that magnifying glass. This one, I really deuced it up. Now, I thought these looked like keys of a typewriter, so that's why I put this stamp in here. I have this stamp that's the handwriting with the writing fluid. I had this from Tim Holtz Things. Can't remember where I got that. That may have been, I don't know. The Hound of the Baskervilles, the detective recognizes works of Godfrey Kneller and Joshua Reynolds. Watson won't allow that I know anything of art, but that is mere jealousy since our views upon the subject differ. And then here is the memoirs of Sherlock Holmes is what they put together these 12 short stories with. And it says the first appearance of both Sherlock's older brother, Mycroft Holmes, and his deadly nemesis, Professor James Moriarty. Moriarty's name has been sprinkled throughout the stories leading up to his first physical appearance in the short story The Adventure of the Final Problem, in which Sherlock Holmes falls to his death in the Rickenbach Falls, or did he? And here is a bug that I just didn't have anything else to put here, so I put this nice little bug. And more magnifying glasses. This is that Cumberbatch guy. He had his own series or something about Sherlock Holmes. Here's a page we worked on together. This is a page from Wren's Digital that has something to do with where he has whip lines or something on his back. I'm not sure what story that's from, though. That's the only thing. But this area has to do with the Hound of the Baskervilles. A lot of people have heard of this one. It's probably the most popular and recognized Sherlock Holmes tale. It's the third novel to be published. It is a veritable ghost story, rife with suspense and chills. Naturally, not everything in it is as it seems, as the duo has to race against time and contend with the phantom hound to save the endangered Baskerville heir. Some folks prefer to read this a bit later, but as this is a chronological reading order, it stays here. Okay. And then here's Office of the Coroner, which can be used as a journal card if they like. And this one, in 1899, the 1899 play Sherlock Holmes by Conan Doyle and William Gillette was a synthesis of several Conan Doyle stories. In addition to its popularity, the play is significant because it, rather than the original stories, introduced one of the key visual qualities commonly associated with Holmes today, his calabash pipe. And I'm assuming this is the calabash pipe. Now, this is a thing that I found about William Gillette and Charles Schroman. That is what they were talking about up here. This is just a little thing about shorthand. And I made like a little fake chest down here to hold these things. So that's kind of what I got going here. Despite Holmes' remarkable reasoning abilities, Conan Doyle still paints him as fallible. In this regard, this being a central theme of the yellow face. And I thought that was cool because it's sort of yellow in this background. And it's talking about the yellow face. Some of these things just happened. I didn't plan them. They just happened. Okay, here's a little belly band that I found in her stuff. And I added the Hound of the Baskervilles on it. Has a journaling card and a nice little locust bug. The Adventure of the Greek Interpreter. He claims that his grandmother was sister to the French artist Vernet, without clarifying whether this was Claude, Joseph, Carl, or Horace Vernet. Maybe that's Vernet. Holmes' brother Mycroft, 7 years his senior, is a government official. Mycroft has a unique civil service position as a kind of human database for all aspects of government policy. Sherlock describes his brother as the more intelligent of the two, but notes that Mycroft lacks any interest in physical investigation, preferring to spend his time at the Diogenes Club. And from my understanding, that was his club. He didn't just stay there. That was that was his club. And here we go. There's Dr. or Mr. Sherlock in his easy chair. And I said, after resisting public pressure for 8 years, Conan Doyle wrote The Hound of the Baskervilles with an implicit setting before Holmes' death. At one point in here, he kills Holmes off, and everybody got mad. The first set of Holmes stories was published between 1887 and 1893. Conan Doyle killed off Holmes in the final battle with the criminal mastermind Professor James Moriarty in The Final Problem, published 1893 but set in 1891, as Conan Doyle felt that my literary energy should not be directed too much into one channel. However, the reaction of the public surprised him very much. Distressed readers wrote anguished letters to the Strand magazine, which suffered a terrible blow, and 20,000 canceled their subscriptions to the magazine in protest. I mean, they really liked Holmes. And here we go. Here's Watson's assessment of the detective's abilities. He doesn't have any knowledge of literature, no knowledge of philosophy, no knowledge of astronomy. Nil means none, right? He has a feeble knowledge of politics. He has a knowledge of botany, which is variable. He is has knowledge of geology because of, trousers and colors and, things that are picked up on your clothing and such. He has a profound knowledge of chemistry. He's very accurate at anatomy. Autonomy. Okay. He has an immense knowledge of sensational literature, but no knowledge of literature up here. That doesn't make much sense. Anyway, he appears to know every detail of every horror Okay, that reminds me of Zach. He likes anything that's horrible in the newspaper. Okay. He plays the violin well, is an expert single-stick player, a boxer, and a swordsman. Has a good practical knowledge of British law. Okay. We have a little flip out here that has a little thing about arsenic poisoning. We have a little kind of a file folder journal card stuck in here. And then we have that was my stamp off page, and I liked that look, so I just put it over here. And then we have Sherlock Holmes in the Autumn of Blood. I don't remember that book being listed, but maybe I just overlooked it. And then we have a big pocket journal card. So this was an extra piece that got printed off, and I just folded it over and made this great big journal card to tuck in here. And you can see it because it's blue. All right. And then these are his people. His people that are out on the beat, I guess you would say. These little file folders. Now, one of them has the names. Where is it? Is it the third one? I think it is. Okay. These are his agents. Until Watson's arrival at Baker Street, Holmes largely worked alone, only occasionally employing agents from the city's underclass. These agents included a variety of informants, such as Langdale Pike, a human book reference upon all matters of social scandal. I believe this is Langdale. If I can get it out. There we go. This is Langdale, so I'll put books in here for him. I think it's a little on the thick side. So he goes in this folder. And then Shinwell Johnson, who is this one, and he who acted as Holmes' agent in the huge criminal underworld of London. That's why he has bars. I couldn't resist it. I had to put some bars on there. And then the best known of Holmes' agents are a group of street children he called the Baker Street Irregulars. And there they are with their little doggy helpers. So they are the Baker Street Irregulars. And I just have some cigar references over here and stuff like that. All right, another magnifying glass with all kinds of goodies. I had thought to fill this in. I said, nah, it's all right. And then we have another big journal card, another ticket. How often have I said to you that when you have have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable must be the truth. Oh my God. I can't get it out. This has British Railways on it. I think that's why I stuck these in here. I knew I had a reason. Oh, okay. And here we go with another one of those pictures. I'm not sure that this goes with anything, but I thought it was kind of cool. In 1903, Conan Doyle wrote The Adventure of the Empty House. Said in 1894, Holmes reappears, explaining to a stunned Watson that he had faked his death to fool his enemies. Then you have The Return of Sherlock Holmes with all these short stories in it. And then these stories see our favorite detective return from the dead. The first short story in this collection of 13 is The Adventure of the Empty House, in which Watson is investigating the murder of a judge with the help of a disguised Sherlock Holmes. Holmes reveals himself to Watson and tells the tale of how he actually was victorious over Moriarty and spent years traveling across the globe. Okay. In his family and early life, the details of Sherlock Holmes' life and Conan Doyle's stories are scarce and often vague. Nevertheless, mentions of his early life and extended family paint a loose biographical picture of the detective. And here I've got another ticket, and here's another question. Which story featured the Ku Klux Klan? Was it the Five Orange Pips, the Crooked Man, the Adventure of the Barrel Cornet, or the Naval Treaty? And he's sitting here kind of contemplating things, maybe. And I thought this would work here. Note, forfeit move if you do not wish to change. I thought that had to do with maybe, they're always talking about, the moves on a chessboard. And if you're ahead of the game and all that kind of stuff. I thought that kind of worked. Here's another Craftley Hall thing with the candelabra, and I thought that was kind of cool. I think this is another big question. Where did Dr. Watson receive his old war wound? Remember, I told you to remember that? Malaya, the Crimea, Afghanistan, or Zululand? Doyle was somewhat elusive as to the location of Dr. Watson's wound. In some stories, Watson was limping due to his old injuries, and in others, he was found rubbing his shoulder. So, he made it kind of mysterious. And then Holmes is an adept bare-knuckle fighter. In The Yellow Face, Watson says he was undoubtedly one of the finest boxers of his weight that I've ever seen. In The Solitary Cyclist, Holmes visits a country pub to make inquiries regarding a certain Mr. Woodley, which results in violence. Mr. Woodley, Holmes tells Watson, had been drinking his beer in the tap room and had heard the whole conversation. Who was I? What did I want? What did I mean by asking questions? He had a fine flow of language, and his adjectives are very vigorous. He ended a string of abuse by a vicious backhander, which I failed to entirely avoid. The next few minutes were delicious. It was a straight left against a slogging ruffian. I emerged as you see me. Mr. Woodley went home in a cart. Oh, nice place to write. I did add this raven crow in here. This is a little goodie that you can spin. This had a car, and I didn't want that car to be in here, because I didn't think it was the right time period. Okay, as a gentleman, Holmes often carries a stick or cane. He is described by Watson as an expert at a single stick and uses his cane thrice as a weapon. In The Adventure of the Empty House, Holmes tells Watson that he used a Japanese martial art known as Baritsu to fling Moriarty to his death in the Reichenbach Falls. Baritsu is Conan Doyle's version of Bartitsu, which combines jiu-jitsu with boxing and cane fencing. And I thought this looked like a couple of them fighting, so I'll put that there. This is a little side pocket and a little double journal card there with a few things to look at. Here's another magnifying glass episode. And I thought this was cool with the evidence over the suitcase with all the goodies in it. Holmes and Watson often carry pistols with them to confront criminals. In Watson's case, his old service weapon, probably a Mark III Adams revolver, issued to British troops during the 1870s. Holmes and Watson shoot the eponymous hound in The Hound of the Baskervilles. And I just found a few other things to put on here with it. The fourth signature. Okay. The interview and questioning of Lady Featherstone's maid, Lucille Bennet. Holmes interviewed Miss Lucille, observing her anxious demeanor. It was revealed that she had received a letter from an unidentified individual who pressured her into secrecy. The demand was for her to leave the study door unlocked, with the assurance that her secret would be protected. Miss Lucille had a prior arrest for theft, a minor detail that was overlooked when she secured the position. Holmes inferred that the blackmailer must be someone influential with access to significant details. Yeah, we're getting down to it. Okay. In The Adventure of the Lion's Mane, the detective calls himself an omnivorous reader with a strangely retentive memory for trifles. And we have another journal card, and we have another question. Who introduced Sherlock Holmes to Dr. Watson? I think at the end I put the wrong name because, see, there's two of them that's exactly the same. I believe it's the first one, but I think I put the third one, so I'm going to have to fix that. Whoopsie. All right, and I just put journal up here. It could be written on right there. This is the case book of Sherlock Holmes with all these 12 short stories in it. It's at this point on our list, however, because a character from the short story, The Adventure of the Illustrious Client, mentioned in previous stories, dies. So I'm not really sure what that meant. Here's another little pocket, and it's sort of a double journal card. It's almost like a little envelope style, though. So that goes in here. And then Education Never Ends. It is a series of lessons with the greatest for the last. Here is our police line that we formed, and this is like a convict behind the bars here, however you want to say it. I've got, I put the bulb up here. This is one of the sergeants, and this is the bulb that shines on you when they're interrogating somebody. So that's why that's there. And then here's the house of Mrs. Featherstone. We're back to her story. It's kind of a mix of his life and his stories with the actual jewel heist mixed in. That's kind of what we're going for here. And I've got the definition for accuse here, and they've actually arrested somebody. Laura J. Snyder has examined Holmes' methods in the context of mid to late 19th century criminology, demonstrating that while sometimes in advance of what official investigative departments were formally using at the time, they were based upon existing methods and techniques. For example, fingerprints were proposed to be distinct in Conan Doyle's day, and while Holmes used a thumbprint to solve a crime in The Adventure of the Norwood Builder, generally held to be set in 1895, the story was published in 1903, 2 years after Scotland Yard's Fingerprint Bureau opened. The effect of the Holmes stories on the development of forensic science has thus often been overstated. Holmes inspired future generations of forensic scientists to think scientifically and analytically, which I thought was really cool. All right, here we have a belly band in a little envelope system here that opens, has a little letter on the back, and I put it in this way so this little flap would hold it from flying out. Here he is studying a few more prints on the ground. I like that look there. Here's his hat. And we got the train going here. Grimsby's rivalry with the Featherstone family was fueled. This is the guy that was guilty, Grimsby. It was fueled by a desire for power and wealth. He orchestrated the theft to obtain the diamond, intending to decipher the hidden family fortune and gain a strategic advantage over the Featherstones in the ongoing land dispute. Grimsby's expertise in codes and ciphers, combined with his financial resources, made him the mastermind behind the crime. So there he was over here being arrested, as you see. And here he is here. He's got the cuffs, and there the case is closed. And here we go. There's a few more. It's like a train ticket with a ticket there in Ren's Digital on Wonders by Wink. She had this little scene. And there's the police district filling out the report on him. And the case is closed, and Holmes is walking off into the distance. This one is his last bow. I don't know how many short stories was in it, but it's the final collection of 8 short stories and a true conclusion of the tales of Sherlock Holmes. It includes a meta in-universe, whatever that is, statement from Dr. Watson assuring readers that Sherlock is alive and well, although retired. We also get an atypical look at Sherlock's life during his war service. This collection has grander stakes than the previous, with Sherlock coming out of retirement to aid the government in the events leading up to World War I. And then we have a little journal card here. This is a little piece from Craftley Hall. It's like a little diary. I thought it was kind of cute to put there. This is like I thought it was a microscope, but I think it's like a thing to look at the stars. So anyway, this was a little piece that I had left over from making my police line, so I thought I'd just put it there. A statement of Holmes' age in his last bow places his year of birth at 1853 or 4. The story, set in August of 1914, describes him as 60 years of age. His parents are not mentioned, although Holmes mentions that his ancestors were country squires. This is another cool little stamp that I got that made like that little brick background. I thought that was neat. That was another one we made together. I got this from a piece of junk mail that I thought was kind of cool and glittery and fit right in. And this is about his trunks and his traveling. And I made this look like a big suitcase kind of thing. And yeah, with a key. This is Dr. Watson. Doyle was somewhat elusive as to the location of Dr. Watson's wound. In some stories, Watson was limping due to his old injuries, and he found rubbing his shoulder. Gosh, that's a repeat. Oh, crap. Oh, well. And then we got the Pullman Company, because the train was in here in a few spots, and that's just the journal card. And, okay. Oh, well. There's more newspaper. Over here we have The Adventure of the Bruce Partington Plans. Watson says that Holmes lost himself in a monograph which he had undertaken upon the polyphonic motets of Lassus, considered the last word on the subject, which must have been the result of an intensive and very specialized musicology study with no obvious application to the solution of criminal mysteries. Have no idea. That's like right over my head again. These are those two, Watson and Holmes, discussing things. Here is a belly band that I made. Actually, I forgot to fill up a couple of spots here. Rats. Okay, I'll have to fix that. So I've got the tall, this is a silverware pocket. And I fold it up at the end just so it'll fit on the page. And you can put a tiny journal card there and a long skinny one there. And then I kind of put this one right in here. So I will have to fix that. And probably both of them. Here are the guys sitting at the pub or whatever, discussing things. Maybe they're in their apartment, but I don't think they'd have their hats on if they were home. The phrase, "elementary, my dear Watson," has become one of the most quoted and iconic aspects of the character. However, although Holmes often observes that his conclusions are elementary, and occasionally occasionally calls Watson, "My dear Watson," the phrase "elementary, my dear Watson" is never uttered in any of the 60 stories by Conan Doyle. One of the nearest approximations of the phrase appears in The Adventure of the Crooked Man, when Holmes explains a deduction. "I have the advantage of knowing your habits, my dear Watson," says he, Holmes. "Excellent, Watson cried. "Elementary," said he. So, okay, here I had these little books from some of the Tim Holtz things that you're able to make actually little actual books out of, but I just kind of edged the side of the page with them. I did a little stamp here of a crackle. Here's Big Ben again. Now, this is the last. Where did Dr. Watson receive his old war wound? Didn't I already have that? Oh, I think I've messed something up. So, I'll recheck that. Now, here, in his last bow, the reader is told that Holmes has retired to a small farm on the Sussex Downs and taken up beekeeping as his primary occupation. The move is not dated precisely, but can be presumed to be no later than 1904, since it is referred to retrospectively in The Adventure of the Second Stain. The story features Holmes and Watson coming out of retirement to aid the British war effort. Only one other adventure, The Adventure of the Lion's Maid, takes place during the detective's retirement. And I've got like a journal card if you want to use it as that. Here he's taking up the occupation of beekeeping. So I've got like a little hive, honeycomb going on in the background there with a few bees. And then we have here at the end, we have the answers. So I think that was one of the old ones, maybe. Oh, it is. It is. That can get thrown away. That's what happened. All right, so here is all the answers. The one about Norbury. Sherlock Holmes asked Watson to whisper Norbury to remind him of his error in predicting the outcome of a case. In The Adventure of the Yellowface, Holmes incorrectly deduces that the client's wife is being blackmailed. Instead, the truth is that she has a mixed-race child she hides due to societal prejudices. Holmes wants Norbury to serve as a reminder against overconfidence and complacency in future cases. Yes, I messed it up. It's supposed to be Stamford. So, okay. Maybe I got to print that back out again. Maybe I can put an M in there. Oh, maybe I can just put the word over top of it. Maybe I can do that. Okay. The 5 Orange Pips was the Ku Klux Klan one. We got the war one. The footprint tracing. The deerstalker hat I told you about. Okay. And I think that was the supernatural one. He is skeptical and believes there's always a logical explanation. And I told you the one about being narrated by Holmes and not Watson. Yeah, okay. So we filled you in on all that. So here was just how the back cover kind of looked. And that is it. There was 4 novels and 56 short stories that were written about Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And he was one of the most beloved characters. There's so many societies and things that still study his. He's even got his own little like place over there now. Everybody wanted to find 221 Baker Street. And they finally just opened it up as a place, like a library or something for him, I understand. All right. Now, when I do the other one, I'm just going to do a flip through, and it'll be a little bit later on, since you've already basically seen it. It is a little different, but yes, you will see it at a later date after a few more videos. All right. Thank you so much for putting up with this. I hope it wasn't too long, but I did want to read you all the information about his life. And I hope you enjoyed it, even though it was long. But it was interesting, wasn't it? I've learned so much about Dr. Watson and Mr. Holmes. I didn't know all of that before. So thank you. I appreciate you. Everybody take care, and bye-bye.